being ignored. No big deal. Dr. Crusher is totally amazed by these distribution nodes she sees. I called them wireless routers because that's what they look like.
They do look like Wi-Fi routers.
It's like they always have them at like your job or whatever. Well, because I work, I've worked in like corporate offices, so it's like they have the ones on the ceiling. That's what they look like. It's got lights on it, it's kind of a weird shape or whatever. But she's like amazed by these because they send out like all the information so that it gets to everybody, kind of thing. She thinks if they can knock out enough of those that they'll have to like power down some, and then maybe they can get Picard and all that kind of stuff, and they'll be good to go. They try to shoot one, doesn't work with one phaser. They do 2 phasers, it's good. So then they go and they get a couple more, and then Worf gets Picard's communicator signal on his tricorder or whatever. We gotta find him. But before that, we see Riker in the reading room, and he is Skyping with Admiral Hansen. Their Federation ships are gonna meet at Wolf 359, and I have no idea what that means.
Oh, I actually do know what that means here. I actually put it in my half of the notes, but I'm happy to share it here. So Wolf 359 is the name of the star that is the main star of the Wolf system.
Gotcha.
And Wolf 359 is about 8 light years away from our sun. So It is a close by system to our system, and that is Wolf 359.
Thank you very much.
I looked that up on the handy dandy Memory Alpha website, which every Trekker should know. Memory Alpha has lots of tidbits about Star Trek, and
that's where I got a whole lot of this stuff.
Oh, you can go down lots of rabbit holes on Memory Alpha.
And trust me, I like to do that. Read about things and go down rabbit holes, because I have a podcast called The Burrow, which I do that about things. Anyway, it's like a shameless plug of a podcast that nobody listens to. So, anyway, the Enterprise can only stay on warp for about 22 minutes, and then they're going to have to, like, go an impulse so that they can charge back up. So, they got to do this quick. They still don't know what's going on with Picard. Then we go back to the Borg cube, and we see the away team following the signal. They kind of walk into like this room, sort of hallway-ish kind of place. I mean, they say in here, so I assumed it was like a room, and there's all these drawers on the wall, and they pull out a drawer, and it just reminds me of like the freezer on the bottom refrigerators, and but it's like steampunky because it's got like cogs and stuff all over.
Yeah, and it's like an IKEA cabinet with a steampunk overlay.
Yes. So they pull open the drawer slowly because it's like, oh, Captain Picard. Nope, just his uniform.
I put in my notes, I was like, oh, that means Picard is new.
I said at least they tried to fold his clothes. Sort of.
Yeah, no, it was kind of like they weren't just chucked in there. It was like
they weren't
like a half fold thrown over the arm, just tuck it in there.
Yeah. It was like wasn't crumpled, wasn't neatly folded. It was somewhere in between. So that was nice. That was nice of them. So then Shelby contacts Riker. She's like, "We just found his stuff. He's running around here naked, we guess." So then we see Geordi and Wesley enter the bridge. They're excited because they can use the weapon, but they're going to have to evacuate some places, in case of fallback and all that kind of thing. The forward half of the secondary hull and the lower 3 decks of the saucer all need to be evacuated. Troy is on it. She's like, I got it. I'll get rid of everybody. And then Riker's like, Commander Shelby, there's only 17 minutes left, So the clock is ticking. They got to find Picard. Back on the Borg cube, and Shelby acknowledges Riker and then leads the team to more distribution nodes that they kill with their phaser power. Some of the lights start blinking once they're shooting these things down. It's like they're in a haunted house or something. So they get a little more weak every time one of them gets blasted, so they're hopefully on the right track. And we know they're on the right track because then we see the bridge, and Wesley is like monitoring it, and he says that their plan is working. The Borg ships has had to drop out of warp. So now that they're going to be out of warp, they should be able to use their extra power to use this weapon that they've got and all this. And Geordi diverts all this power to the main deflector. Riker requests that they get within 40,000 kilometers and match velocity. And
Right.
that is they can be that far away and still transport somebody on and off a ship, I think, right?
Oh yeah, like they can be. I mean, there are limits, of course, but that's within transporter range.
Yeah, and like that would work, even though he didn't have because he didn't have his his badge or whatever, so they would be able to try to lock on him or whatever. And then everybody else. I wrote after I said that Riker requests they get within 40,000 kilometers and match velocity. I said, I smell a math problem here. It's like a Borg cube is going.
If a Borg cube is traveling at 9.5 warp and you have to get as close as 40 kilometers, what warp speed do you have to match to keep from smashing into them?
How long will it take you? At what speed?
What are the prices? What's the price of oranges on Rigel 4?
Right, yeah.
I don't think they sell oranges on Rigel 4. Like maybe they do. I don't know.
So
I've never been.
So they arm the ship and they change the reflector frequency and all that technobabble, and woohoo! They're gonna do this. So we're back on the cube. A Borg comes around the corner, then another, and they're like shooting them, and everybody's like got this aggressive stance and they're ready to fight, and they're shooting, and then they don't. Then of course, then their little shields pop up and they can't take the blasts anymore, which is sad. So Shelby's like, Enterprise, transport us on my command, because they're trying to get rid of as many as they can and still figure out where Picard is. And then all of a sudden, you think that they're either going to get taken over or just have to beam out. Beverly looks down the hallway and sees Picard, and she's like, Jean-Luc. He turns around. And he is a fucking Borg. I know, I bleeped myself again, but it was necessary.
Agreed.
Ooh, like, I can't, I don't, like, I feel like I didn't remember being super surprised or anything, because it had already been shown at its regular time slot, and I was watching these on syndication months later or a year later or whatever, and so I'd seen it next time on Next Generation, and then they show things that they don't show at the, when they show it on a commercial, they show more stuff half the time, because, people have already seen it. No. So I wasn't super surprised, but it was still, like, surprising. Worf calls him Captain and all this kind of thing. And then Captain Borgcard, sorry, I have to do puns, stuns Worf. It's like, oh, no, you didn't.
See, I didn't get that he would that like Picard stunned him. Like, I thought there was a force field around Picard.
Oh, maybe. I thought he stunned him. Sorry.
Because it kind of looked like he walked into like something that was before him.
Gotcha.
Because like Picard didn't even he didn't raise a hand or anything. So I got the sense it was basically a big tease by the Borg. It's like, oh look, here's Picard, he's out in the open, woo, and then he runs over to grab him, and there's like the force field.
I'll watch it a little more closely. I'm still shook, but
You are shooketh.
Yes. The away team returns. They're like, hey Riker, Picard is a Borg, so we didn't get him. Geordi sees that the Borg ship is regenerating its stuff, its problem, so they're like zoom in on it and they can see all the pieces moving around. Dr. Crusher, she's like, he's still alive, don't use that weapon, we might be able to save him, and Shelby thinks that they can retrieve him, but Riker's like, no, it's too late, sorry, we gotta take care of this. Because if the Borg gets their warp power back, they haven't got their power up enough to be able to follow them. They have to recharge their warp drive, and
this feels a little bit like one of the main themes of the episode kind of coming full circle. Is from the beginning, it's been like, well, Riker's too timid to make the hard choices. He was this up-and-comer, but now he's comfortable. And here's a situation where it's like, this is a hard choice. And he's like, yeah, as much as I love Picard and I love my captain, and he's like, if the Borg get away now, they're gonna head to Earth. And he's like, fire the weapon. It's like you kind of see Riker make that, like, he comes into the captain role very quickly and is like kind of a Spock thing, but it's like, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah, for sure. So they get hailed by the Borg ship. We see several Borg standing around with Picard in the middle, and he walks closer in the view screen and he says, I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life as it has been is over. From this time forward, you will service us. Oh. And then Riker's like, Mr. Worf, fire. It's like, and that's the end. And then it just says to be continued in great big letters, and I cannot imagine having to wait 3 months to see that.
Right? Can I just say, like, how dramatic was Locutus to, like, make that whole, like, slow saunter up to the screen, first off. But then, like, it was so interesting because right from the get-go, he says, I am Locutus, not we are Locutus. Plus, he has a name.
Yes.
This was the first time you've heard a Borg have an individual name.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, whoa.
So
dramatic AF, but okay.
because even though they have, like, the sort of hive mind or whatever, like, they know that in order to be personable to people, to actually get them to be assimilated, they have to have someone who sounds like a person.
That's a good point.
So I have a couple things that I want to say before we end this that I read. The assistant director, Chip Chalmers, remembered during filming when they did this. He says, I remember the moment when Patrick, dressed in a Borg outfit, first walks up to the view screen and says, I am Locutus of Borg. He came onto the set. Everybody was wild with what they had done to Patrick, and we got everyone settled down and did one rehearsal. All he had to do was walk up to the camera. He did so and towered over everyone. It was just so creepy and so spooky. And he said, I am Locutus of Borg. Have you considered buying a Pontiac? And everyone was on the floor. I was like, that's so cute. I love it. So Michael Westmore, the special effects guy, he's done a lot of Star Trek. He's done a lot of stuff. He's like a living legend. He's done all kinds of things. His daughter hosted Face Off on Sci-Fi, if you'd ever watched that, with the special effects stuff. So he'd been on that a lot, and he'd been their mentor and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So he was really helpful to them, but he's a genius at this stuff. He was recalling how an effective special effect was added to Locutus's helmet, and it was just a tiny cheap laser. So his son Michael, who did all the Borg electronics and stuff, so for like the eyes and all the head stuff, and Locutus had a little swirly gig thing and stuff on him. He was like, I found this little laser. It's only an inch long. I think we should put it on Locutus. So when they stuck it on there by his eye, like, and he turns his head, you get that like J.J. Abrams like lens flare, and it makes it even more dramatic. And they did it with like this little bitty, laser that they found was super cheapy thing that if they had gone looking for something, they might have spent a lot more money on it or tried to build something when he just kind of came across this. So I was like, that's really cool. And that's the kind of stuff I like.
Really cool.
The cosplayer in me is like, I like finding cheap alternatives. But what's funny is he said, there's that scene at the end of the first part of Best of Both Worlds where Patrick turns his head and looks directly into the camera with his laser. We had no idea what was going to happen. Boy, the phone rang. And he said Rick Berman saw it and said, oh my God, what a great effect. And that effect would have cost them thousands of dollars at the time to do like CGI, and it was just happenstance. And I'm like, that's so cool. So,
that is very cool.
Yeah, so those are my cool things that I got from Memory Alpha. You should check it out if you've got a couple days to spare.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, you have to be careful of those rabbit holes because it's easy to jump around to different episodes and stuff.
We'll talk to you next time for part 2.
Part 2 of this story arc?
Story arc, yes. I'm like, I'm still shook, you guys. I can't take it.
It is. I mean, listen, anybody would be shaken to see Captain Picard as Locutus of
Borg.
Borg.
The whole fandom.
This is one of the best season finales of like any show, I feel like. I don't know how you guys feel. But I still can't wrap my head around how excruciating it would have been. I wouldn't have been able to enjoy my summer vacation, you guys.
Oh, yeah, no. I remember, like, the episode finish and you see that, Picard is a Borg and you're just like, oh, my God. My tiny head exploded. And then the whole summer, it's like just hypothesizing, like, are they gonna save him? Is this the end of Picard? Does Picard stay aboard for the rest of the series? Like what's gonna happen? And just the whole, I remember even my dad, like we all were talking about it. And